The road to heaven is a long one, and rough the road, the way unknown, but my companion is a strong one. I need not walk this way alone.
Hi, this is another in the series called You Can Understand the Course. And what Timothy and I, Jan, are doing here is sharing with you some techniques that we use when we're reading the Course to unlock its meaning. Would you like to read this?
Right, should we read the whole paragraph?
Yeah, why don't you do that?
All right, so this is, as Jan said, is Chapter 1, Section 7, Paragraph 4. This is a course in mind training. All learning involves attention and study at some level. Some of the later parts of the course rest too heavily on these earlier sections not to require their careful study. You will also need them for preparation. Without this, you may become much too fearful of what is to come to make constructive use of it. However, as you study these earlier sections, you will begin to see some of the implications that will be amplified later on.
Okay, so one of the things that we do, not just in this paragraph, but we're going to start with this paragraph, is to look for words that are linked to one another in one way or another. They might be synonyms, they might be words that are equivalent, or they might be words that come from a common source. You see how these words are related? Course, training, learning, attention, study. We see study again, where it says, some of the later parts of the course rest too heavily on these earlier sections not to require their careful study. You might even see preparation. Sometimes people consider study a preparation for life or whatever. And then the word study occurs again in the 6th sentence. So when you put all of these words together, you get a picture. Picture of school, maybe a course in college, and after all, it's called the text. So what are the implications when you realize he's using terms that come from education rather than, let's say, from devotion? You know, he could have put this in a lot of other contexts. He's not setting this course in the context of ritual or devotion or some of those other religious methodologies.
Right.
But he's telling us, we got to study this. We got to put in effort.
We've got to study it. But
let's take this idea of interlinking words that we've seen here and apply it to another paragraph. Okay, so we've seen how in this first paragraph you can see the links quite easily. They're all so closely related: study, training, things like that. This next paragraph that we're going to use also has interlinking terms, whether it's a word or a phrase, and yet your own effort and attention toward it is going to pull out meaning. It's going to take a little bit more work.
Text 14, Section 6, Paragraph 2, the quiet light in which the Holy Spirit dwells within you is merely perfect openness in which nothing is hidden and therefore nothing is fearful. Attack will always yield to love if it is brought to love and not hidden from it.
Let's look at the first sentence. The quiet light in which the Holy Spirit dwells within you is merely perfect openness. So it's setting up an equivalency. This quiet light is perfect openness. So, okay, we can almost say it's a partial definition, or it's equivalent in some way. Let's just say it's linked, in which nothing is hidden. And we can see that that phrase, nothing is hidden, is another way of restating perfect openness.
First it introduces this sort of noun phrase or noun the quiet light. Okay, there's this thing called the quiet light.
Right.
And then he's defining in a sense, or describing in a sense, that it's this perfect openness. Okay, and so the determinateness of that description of it has a point, right? So in other words,
sure.
So when I read this sentence, I don't stop at quiet light and I go to some memory in myself necessarily. It could be, but some idea about what I think light is in a spiritual sense. And light is this and that, and then I miss the rest of the sentence. It's important, I think what you're saying, it's important to get that when he introduces this noun phrase, the quiet light, that he's going on to say something about it, but further that he's going to say something that's meaningful and important for us to connect with it.
Absolutely.
Okay, so the perfect openness is, we think in terms of this thing as a quiet light, we think of it in terms of the Holy Spirit, but we're thinking of it then now in some important way for the point of this section as perfect openness.
Right.
And then perfect openness is further defined where nothing is hidden. So now we're getting, as we'll probably see, and as you probably, if you pay attention to the course, we're getting to a place that's familiar to us rather than just metaphysical, like quiet light or Holy Spirit, or like perfect openness and nothing is hidden. To those people who are, sort of intentional people who want to discover themselves and grow and evolve, they recognize the value of openness and not hiding your stuff and all that. So that's, we're focusing here. It's not just some abstract quiet light. This quiet light means something very definitive here. I think that's the point you're making.
Well, yeah, that's the point of following these linked words. But what we're trying to say here is when you pay attention to the fact that he's making quiet light equivalent to perfect openness, in which nothing is hidden, you get a lot more meaning.
Well, okay, so an example of that would be, is if you're ready, if we move on to the next sentence, right? Here, attack will always yield to love if it is brought to love and not hidden it. So that's addressing what the Course talks a lot about, is our fear of looking at ourselves and coming before God or coming before truth. It's like, oh my God, what is that one lesson that says, if you knew the truth about me,
you'd think it was like, you'd recoil as if
snakes
from
would
a
recoil.
poisonous
Well,
snake.
here it's saying, no, that's not going to happen. Love is going to, the attack will yield to it. It's going to be okay. Right? If you don't hide it. So therefore, it's saying, describing quiet light as perfect openness, getting that it's talking about perfect openness, holding on to that idea where nothing is hidden, gives you the payoff here, is that we'll see that what we thought we were going to be either punished for or was going to be painful will yield to love.
Right.
And that's the real advantage to the study. It's not just academic or nerdy or whatever. There's a kicker in there. Right?
Yeah.
And there's the payoff.
Right. That's the whole point. Otherwise, why bother?
Right. The road to heaven is a long one, and rough the road, the way unknown, but my companion is a strong one. I need not walk this way alone.